Rome had around 70 emperors before the western half of the empire finally died. Some of them built a world that lasted 1,000 years. Some of them made their own bathwater more dangerous than any battlefield. And one of them saved the entire empire in 5 years. And your history teacher almost certainly never said his name. So here they all are, every single one, sorted from worst to best into 6 tiers of competence. The version they taught you was the marketing. This is the invoice. And the emperor sitting at the very top is not the one you are thinking of.
We start at the bottom, the F tier, the disasters. These men did not just fail Rome, they actively made it worse. Caligula belongs here, and yes, you have heard the story about his horse. Here is the correction, because the amateur historians in the comments are right about this one. Neither Suetonius nor Cassius Dio actually says Caligula made his horse a consul. They say he threatened to, and even then they wrote it down as a rumor. Most historians now read it as a sick joke or as propaganda invented by the men who replaced him. What is not a rumor is Nero. Nero ordered the murder of his own mother. When the collapsing boat he had built for her failed to drown her, he simply sent men to stab her instead. His final words as he took his life were, "What an artist dies in me."
And no, he did not fiddle while Rome burned. The fiddle would not be invented for another 800 years, and most scholars today no longer even blame him for the fire. Then there is Commodus, who renamed the city of Rome after himself, and renamed all 12 months of the year after his own 12 names, before being strangled in his bath by his personal wrestling partner. Elagabalus was murdered at 18, dragged through the streets and thrown into the river Tiber. Honorius sat on the throne while Rome itself was sacked, and there is a famous story, probably invented later, that when a servant told him Rome had perished, he thought they meant his pet chicken. But the single most pathetic entry in the entire F tier is Didius Julianus.
This man did not conquer the throne, and he did not inherit it. He bought it. At an auction. The imperial guard put the Roman Empire up for sale to the highest bidder, and he won. He lasted 66 days before he was executed.
That brings us to the D tier, and this is where Rome very nearly ended for good. Starting in the year 235, the empire collapsed into what we now call the crisis of the 3rd century. In just 50 years, at least 26 different men were accepted as emperor by the Senate. Most of them seized power in a military coup, ruled for a few short months, and were then killed by their own soldiers in the very next coup. Invasion, civil war, plague, and economic ruin all struck at the same time. The throne became the single most dangerous job in the ancient world, and the average emperor barely had time to put his face on a coin before he was dead.
That one detail tells you everything. The money itself was falling apart. The silver in the coins was being quietly replaced with cheap metal, and inflation gutted the economy, while the borders burned.
Up one level, the C tier, the caretakers. These emperors are not exciting, and that is exactly the point. Antoninus Pius ruled for 23 years in a peace so complete that historians struggle to find anything dramatic to say about him. He barely even left Italy. No great war, no great scandal, no great collapse, just a machine that kept running. Nerva ruled for less than 2 years, but he quietly did one thing that mattered more than any conquest. He began the practice of choosing a successor by merit, adopting the best available man instead of simply handing power to a son. That single idea produced the golden age that came right after him.
The B tier, the builders. These men left Rome physically bigger and richer than they found it. Vespasian dragged the empire out of civil war and began construction of the Colosseum, and he paid for that recovery in a very Roman way. He put a tax on public urine, which was collected and used in tanning and laundry. When his own son complained that the money was disgusting, Vespasian held up a gold coin and asked whether it smelled bad. It did not. Money, he said, does not stink. Hadrian stopped trying to expand the empire and instead drew a hard border, including the famous wall across northern Britain that still carries his name today. Tiberius was a capable administrator who left the treasury overflowing, even if he ended his life paranoid and hiding on an island. And Claudius, often mocked as a fool, actually conquered Britain and reformed the entire administration, before he was, according to the rumors, poisoned by his own wife with a plate of mushrooms.
Now, the A tier, the statesmen. These are the emperors who carried Rome through moments that should have broken it. Marcus Aurelius wrote one of the most quoted works of philosophy in human history, his Meditations, and he wrote it in a military tent, on campaign, while a devastating plague tore through his own army. He was great not in comfort, but under relentless pressure. Diocletian did something no emperor before him had ever managed. He ended the crisis of the 3rd century, completely reorganized the empire, and then he voluntarily gave up absolute power and retired. When they later begged him to return and rule again, he refused, and reportedly said that if they could only see the cabbages he was growing with his own hands, they would never ask him to come back. And Constantine reunited the empire under a single ruler, legalized Christianity, and founded a brand new capital, Constantinople, a city that would outlive the entire West by 1,000 years.
Which finally brings us to the top, the S tier, the Immortals. Augustus is here, obviously. He founded the empire itself. He ruled for 41 years, and he could honestly boast that he had found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble. Trajan is here too, the emperor who pushed Rome to the greatest size it would ever reach, and who celebrated the conquest of Dacia with games that sources claim ran for 123 straight days. But the emperor at the very top of this entire list, the single most competent ruler Rome ever produced, is a name most people have simply never heard: Aurelian. When he took the throne, the empire had already broken apart into 3 separate pieces. In under 5 years, he put all of it back together. He crushed the breakaway empire of Queen Zenobia in the east, he dismantled the rival empire in the west, and he razed the enormous walls around Rome that are still standing today. The Senate gave him a title no other emperor ever earned: Restorer of the World. And here is the cruelest twist in the whole story. The man who single-handedly saved Rome was not killed in a battle. His own secretary, terrified of being punished for a lie he had told, forged a fake list of officers supposedly marked for execution. Those officers believed the list, and so they killed him first. The greatest emperor Rome ever had, murdered over a forged document by one frightened clerk.
So that is every Roman emperor, ranked from the man who bought the throne at auction to the man who rebuilt the entire world and got a knife for it. The version they taught you put Caesar and Augustus on the poster. The invoice says the real rescue came from a soldier almost nobody remembers. So tell me, which one should Chronica cover in full next? The emperor who retired to grow cabbages, or the one killed by a fake list? Comment below and subscribe, because every answer you leave becomes the next video.